Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack post-game where Luka makes his debut in Los Angeles. Let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So the Jazz travel to Los Angeles and play the Los Angeles Lakers tonight in LA. And the long-awaited, for last week, Luka makes his debut. Luka's been sitting out for a long time. He's been injured a long time, so he hasn't played a game in 6 weeks or something like that, since sometime in December. So this was a big thing. It was long-awaited. I think it was probably very possibly the most watched NBA game of the season thus far, the most interest. And let's talk about the Lakers and what Luka did and what they can do going forward before we actually get to the Jazz. So my impressions are the same as they were going into this game. I think it's going to take a while for those two ball-dominant guys to gel. Luka is accustomed to having the ball in his hands on most NBA possessions for most of the possession, and LeBron is the same way. Now, how those guys distribute the ball between the two of them and get that worked out is a big key to the Lakers' success. The other thing that I think is the key for the Lakers and how they perform the rest of this season and going into the playoffs is their ability to defend. And I think it's a huge weakness. They don't have bigs, and they have some of the poorest defenders on the perimeter in the NBA. Austin Reaves is not a good defensive player. Luka Doncic, not a good defensive player. And LeBron, at his age, isn't a plus defender. I'd say he's mediocre. So it's a big problem, and that's a huge, huge issue that the Lakers need to address some way, somehow. Can they get some additional size on the waiver wire, something like that? But they definitely need to somehow find a way to improve their defense. They just can't go into the playoffs and go, okay, we're going to outscore everybody. I think they will make the playoffs, assuming health. I think they'll. I think the addition of Luka actually helps that team this season and beyond. But they have to defend. They just can't outscore everybody. I mean, that just can't be the strategy moving forward. Thoughts?
Yeah, they have a couple of really good defenders on their team, and Dorian Finney-Smith, and it's great to see Vando back playing. I love to see Vando out there, but he's not getting a lot of minutes. But those two guys are really good defenders. I agree with you. They don't have a big guy. They don't have a big guy that can stop down low. And we're going to get into why Walker Kessler didn't do more tonight, honestly, with the big guys that Los Angeles is playing. But it's really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how they gel together, because Luka and LeBron actually play very similar in a lot of respects. And so how are those two guys going to gel together? How are they going to work with these other players on their team? I'm not convinced that, yes, it was a steal. And our guy AD now had another non-contact injury. And I feel bad for the guy because, no one's rooting for any player to get hurt. But at the same time, it's AD, right? It happens every year. So it was a great move from the Lakers, what they did, but I'm not sure where they're going to go this year. Honestly, do you put them like against Oklahoma City, against,
No.
So that's going to be the challenge, is how they can pull all these guys together. They got some great talent, but how are they going to pull it together? The other thing I read, and then I'll shut up and let you respond to it. So Charlotte's challenging the Mark Williams.
Yeah.
And they held Dalton Connect out tonight. So clearly that was, I assume that was intentional. I feel for the kid because he's probably upset about it, but they're challenging it. And they need a big guy. There'll be waiver wire big guys out there, but they need a big guy. And if they can pick one up for nothing, they'll be a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole issue with Dalton and the trade and all that, I mean, that's a mess. If Charlotte is successful, Dallas should pursue the same remedy and say, you sold us damaged goods with Davis. I mean, he's immediately injured and out for a month. So pursue the same remedy. You sold us damaged goods. I mean, here, the thing about, from the Dallas perspective, I mean, I was halfway joking with the same remedy, obviously. But the thing about the Dallas perspective, this is why you don't trade for Anthony Davis. This is exactly why that trade is so egregiously bad. I mean, this is as you said, this is Anthony Davis. This is who he is at this point in his career. The guy's a porcelain player. Any little thing. I mean, that was a non-contact injury and he's out for a month. I mean, this is the issue. This is like the worst. How often have we seen that?
Other than last year, every year, right? Last year he didn't get hurt. Yeah. Like in the playoffs, you're going into the first game and there's a non-contact hamstring pull that keeps him basically out for the whole series. And you feel bad for the guy because he's a fantastic player. The problem is he doesn't play, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't. At this point in that guy's career, I mean, he's always been injury prone, but at this point, considering his age and his recent history with injury issues, you can't count on that guy. And so they essentially got one first-round unprotected pick for him. They didn't even get the second pick that Lakers had available to trade. I mean, it was the most idiotic. They should have shopped him around and taken the best deal. If they wanted to get rid of Luka because they don't like his work ethic and his lousy body and all that, I get that. I mean, those are my criticisms of the guy since he's been in the league. All he does is bellyache to the referees constantly. I mean, all that stuff is infuriating. It's frustrating watching that. Mm-hmm. But he's one of the top 5 guys in the league in terms of what other teams think of him. Not even so, you just can't trade him for what they did. You just can't. And it's the most lopsided trade that I've ever witnessed in my time following the NBA, which is basically my entire life. It's just idiotic.
I don't disagree with that. It was a terrible trade. And the one thing, like, neither you and I really like watching Luka Doncic. Why? We don't like the one-on-one ball dominant player. It's kind of like Clarkson's not as bad as that, but we kind of like the same thing, right? We just don't enjoy watching that kind of basketball. But if you look at the advanced stats, he's incredibly effective. Incredibly effective. Yeah. Top 1 or 2 in the whole NBA with the advanced stat, like scoring per possession, right? He's unbelievable. So, there is so much value in that guy. It's incredible. And it's, let's face it, it's going to be fun this year to see how they put them all together because they're with the maestro, and LeBron James. If there's one, like I looked at his line tonight, I mean, he had 7 turnovers, but he had 8 assists, 7 rebounds. The guy's 40 years old. I mean, it's unbelievable how good the guy still is. Right. So there's no, putting those two guys together, and you got Finney Smith. I mean, you got some guys that can play there. So it'll be really fun to see how the Lakers pull it together this year. But unless they fix the defensive issue, I agree. They're not going anywhere. Yeah. And I think realistic Laker fans understand that, right? I mean, I think that, but who's going to be bought out, right? This year, like there will be centers bought out that can play. Who was I heard the rumor on? I mean, there was a couple of guys that actually were like decent players that may be buyout candidates, that are centers or, big power forwards. So I think they're going to get somebody. And who wouldn't want to play in LA? Yeah. Right? I mean, you and I would love to play in Utah because we're from Utah, but there's certainly more players who would like to play in LA than in Utah. So they're going to pick somebody up. Yeah. But it's going to be fun to watch Mark Williams, what comes out of that.
Yeah, that's going to be that's certainly going to be the drama for the next week until obviously Adam Silver's going to have to get involved and try and remedy that situation because that's a mess. But the Lakers are clearly going to pick one or more guys up and try. I mean, they might try somebody and then move on from that person, try another person. They might rotate through a few guys trying to find a fit before the playoff rosters have to be settled. But it's imperative that they improve on the defensive end. You can't go expecting to meet the best defensive team in the league in the OKC Thunder and go in to that series if they end up meeting them, as the Lakers will be one of the worst defensive teams in the league, because this roster, I mean, yeah, it worked out well against the night. I mean, the Jazz were a mess, but you just can't do this. I mean, I think if Vanderbilt can stay healthy, he can help considerably. He's a much better defensive player than Rui, for sure. I mean, Rui is also not, I'd say he's a negative defender as well, and he's a negative rebounder as well too. So Vanderbilt can certainly help in those two areas, because I consider, I mean, Vanderbilt's an energy guy. He's a good rebounder. He's a good defender. He plays hard in both those areas, and that's something that Rui doesn't do. And so I think he can definitely help. And like, he's been injured for the past 2 seasons, and so hopefully, and Vanderbilt's a good dude too. So hopefully that guy can stay healthy. That could definitely help the Lakers.
Yeah, I do think that it's going to be Finney-Smith that moves into the starting lineup, because he also has the stretch 4 or stretch 3.
Yeah.
So he's got a great, a very good jump shot from 3. So I think Finney-Smith is the guy that you put in to try to offset. But I don't know what you do with Reaves. Honestly, you and I could blow past Reaves. Be it out of shape, having played basketball.
Yeah, honestly, that summer that he signed that big contract and teams were going, well, should we make an offer? And there was speculation, well, should the Jazz make an offer to Austin? I think, no, that guy can't guard anybody. He's one of the poorest, at his position, he's one of the poorest defensive players in the league. The dude cannot guard anybody. So I mean, that's the problem, is they just have a bunch of guys in that lineup who are not average defenders. They're actually below average. And that's a huge red flag. And that's why they have to address this. Some way, somehow, they got to find a solution. And I didn't foresee the Lakers challenging with Anthony Davis in that previous thing. And I don't think they have an opportunity to really challenge for a title with this new crew. But it's something different, at least. So we'll see. That's my opinion on it. At least it's something different, and it sets them up, obviously, for the next 10 years moving forward, with Luka as the cornerstone centerpiece of your franchise.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be fun to watch, and honestly, it was great to see Luka play. You want your great players playing. So as much as I don't like watching Luka play, I was glad to see him back. So. And it's going to be fun. I mean, this trade threw a lot of wrinkles in it. Actually, before we moved to the Jazz, one positive, I was actually really happy to see Kyrie Irving make the All-Star team. Like, put it as Kyrie Irving's had an unbelievable season. I mean, he's been great. The guy who hasn't been great, James Harden. James Harden is shooting under 40% from the field in 34 or something like that from 3. Yeah. How in the world do you put James Harden on the All-Star team ahead of Kyrie Irving? Yeah. Just because the Clippers are good, you got to pick some guy. Well, you picked the wrong guy on their team, right? To be the All-Star team. But I was happy for Kyrie. Yeah, he's a weird dude. Yeah, I don't want him playing for my team. But honestly, he also seems like a decent dude. At the end of the day, he has his principles. They may be a little wacky, but he deserves it. And I was happy to see him make it.
Yeah, Harden's age, and obviously that guy hasn't taken good care of his body either. Another one, so that's catching up to him, and he's definitely on the downward slope of his effectiveness. He doesn't have that much time left, in my opinion.
Let me read you the stats before we go off of it. James Harden, 34 minutes a game, 39.5 from the field, 34.2 from three-point line, 89.2 from free throws. Fantastic. 5.7 rebounds for a guard. That's great. 8.6 assists. We talked the other day. That's fourth or fifth in the league. 4.5 turnovers. Not fantastic. 21 points a game.
Yeah.
Sorry, not an all-star.
Yeah. I mean, he's a point guard and he has less than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah.
That's not good, obviously.
Yeah,
But
and another guy, eating at the Golden Corral with Luka, right?
Oh yeah. He's been. I mean, the guy's. I think all of his free times he goes to the quote unquote club, and he goes and hangs out at the club. I mean, I think that's what he does. I don't think he really does anything else. And when I say club, everybody knows what I mean. So that's what he does. Anyway, okay, so that's the Lakers. So let's now shift to the Jazz and this game and what happened, and my thoughts exactly on how this actual. I mean, this was a messy game. There's no way. There's no sugarcoating this one. The Jazz were way behind from the get-go. And again, my complaints are the same with last game. Clarkson comes in and he's just jacking shots and he's consuming a ton of possessions. You know, this is not the way forward. I mean, there was no continuity in that offense. Collier got frozen out in the first part of the game. He wasn't handling the ball. It was Clarkson. And it's just messy. Hardy has to do something different with the minutes distributions and the rotations and the guys he plays. Something has to change. If this is the way that it's going to go for the rest of the year, it's a huge fail. I mean, yeah, the Jazz need to lose games, but you don't lose games in this manner. This isn't how you do it, because the Jazz desperately need the development time as well. They can't do this. This can't happen. It's just inexcusable.
Well, I think it's going to happen, because the thing I've noticed about Hardy, you and I, it's very clear in our communications. There's three people that just kind of rub us the wrong way: Clarkson, Keontae, and Hardy. And Hardy's not going to change. The thing I've noticed about Hardy, he's the second youngest coach in the NBA. Plaudits to him, right? He was able to do that. He came through Pop's system. He's great with players. Reportedly, players seem to love him wherever he goes. Those are all skills. But he's also a really cocky young coach that thinks he's smarter than everybody else, which he's not, and he's stubborn and won't change his views. And that's a death sign. Like, look, everybody mistakes. You and I make mistakes. We make a statement. It's wrong. Everybody makes mistakes. The thing is, the people that are great are those that learn from those mistakes and adapt. Hardy doesn't. There's two guys that he continues to do this with, and that is Keontae and Jordan, and it's hurting the team. But do you think he's going to change? No, he wants to prove he's right in that he's wrong. You're not right, Hardy. You're wrong in what you're doing here. Clarkson's getting us nothing. And honestly, Isaiah had a tough game. You know something? It was a high-profile game. He was against his college teammate. He was against a guy I'm sure he knows in LeBron because his son was on the team. It was a tough environment to go into. He struggled a lot of the game. But you know something? He pulled himself out of it. He went to the hoop strong. He rips the ball away from some guy coming down like on the defensive end. And he ended up with 10 assists, even though he didn't have like a lot to start with, right? So he fought through all of that, which was like fantastic. He's the guy that we should be like taking a shot on. And yes, he struggled for a lot of the game. That's okay. He's 20 years old or 19, whatever he is now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. He pulled himself out of it, and he actually ended up shooting 50% from the field, too. He went 6 for 12, 1 for 3 on 3. So he had 4 rebounds, 10 assists, and 13 points. I mean, those aren't terrible numbers, his ending numbers, but obviously that wasn't the first half was just messy because he just was not. He's got it. unlike Keontae last year and this year, Isaiah has shown that he should be, of all the people on the roster, he should be the guy. He should be the guy directing the offense. That's him. Not Keontae, not Clarkson. It should be Collier. He's obviously willing to run the offense as a traditional point guard, but if he's relegated in some way on the offensive end to in favor of Clarkson or Keontae, we're in a bad spot. Jordan Clarkson and Keontae George, between the two of them, they shot 8 for 24 from the field tonight. 8 for 24. Those are bad numbers. They did have 12 assists, but still, not good numbers. 12 assists and 6 turnovers between the two of them because Keontae had 8 assists and 5 turnovers. And Keontae shot 2 for 9 from the field, 1 for 6 on 3, 6 for 6 from the line. It's just, either Hardy has to change or Ainge has to force him to change. That's the bottom line.
Well, if we want to lose this year, we're doing the right thing to lose. I think we could do it more effectively by developing our players, but it's just going to mean we're losing. You and I have both talked that, look, Hardy can adapt too. Is he going to adapt? No, I don't think so, but he could adapt. And if he could adapt, he could turn into a great coach. He's not right now. So do I think he's going to be the coach when we're ready to start winning? No, I don't. As I don't think he's got the skill set for it, but he may learn. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if he learned slowly with Sexton, sort of. So maybe. The other guy didn't play today until the second half was Flip. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
He's
a great. He played a great game. He's a great passer. He will help get you into the offense. Why not let him play? Because honestly, look at Lauri's. I actually want to talk more about Lauri. Look at Lauri's assists. 1 assist. That's Lauri. Unfortunately, that's Lauri. 3 rebounds.
Yeah.
Put Flip in. I'm not saying like bench Lauri. I'm not suggesting that at all. But you have another guy who's a great passer in Flip who's looking better and better. We'll play him. Yeah. What did he do to like get 10 minutes? I don't know. You trying to save him because he had minutes in the last? I don't know.
Yeah,
but it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, not playing him in the first half. I mean that's again. This is inexcusable. Like you just can't do this. I understand. I'm fully on board with sitting guys who dog it. You can't have guys just automatically getting minutes when they're not playing hard, because that was our complaint with Keontae. I mean, last year he completely dogged it, and he still got tons of minutes. And it's like, well, I believe. Hardy would say, "Oh, I believe in the guy." Well, yeah, well, the guy is. He's like one of those guys you play pickup ball with, who goes down and shoots it every time. And then he just stands on the offensive side of the floor and doesn't even bother to run back. That's Keontae George in a nutshell.
Yeah,
and yet, just standing there cherry picking. And that's basically what Keontae George did much of last year. And yet he got tons of minutes. And now Kyle Filipowski, I haven't seen him do anything like that thus far. And yet here he is. He doesn't even get playing time in the first half. It's just, the whole thing is just, tonight's game is just a mess. Like, it's just from the get-go, it was a disaster. Anyway.
Yeah. It was we don't want to sound too negative, but I think you can tell from our tone, neither of us were really pleased with this game. Do we love watching our players play? Of course. But we actually started talking about the Lakers first because there was a lot more positives with them than watching this. And there was some really frustrating signs watching the Jazz. And I think we should. So why don't you click on Keontae? I'm just curious what his numbers are for the year. Okay. So, man, he's shooting the same as Harden, 39.4 from the field, 33.3. So he's now below what he was last point from 3. His assists are better than last year by 1.4, 5.8. And turnovers, where are the turnovers? 2.9 versus 2.5. So he's one of the guys that Hardy is focusing on. So go back and let's look at Clarkson, where he stands. So Jordan Clarkson. Do you think he's shooting better or worse than Keontae? 41.8. He's got him. 41.8 from the field. 3. Wow. 37.7. Jordan, that hot glass game, he went up. So that for Jordan, that's like maybe a career high. That's like pretty impressive. So 82.6. He's a good free throw shooter. Assists 3.8, and then turnovers 2.1. So not great there. Not even a 2-to-1. But clearly not like the guy you should be emphasizing and playing. His numbers do look better than they did a month ago and any time last year or the last couple of years. But again, not the guy you should be focusing, like developing. He's not going to be there. This, I keep speculating he's going to be traded, and he doesn't. So I don't want to do it this summer. Yeah, he's going to be traded. I have no idea if he's going to be traded or not. But he's not the guy that's going to be there 3 years from now when we start to try to turn it the other way. And so why give him time? It's not going to make him more tradable. I'm sorry. He doesn't have a big market. Do I hope that he goes to like a contender and he can play meaningful minutes? Of course I do. I want Jordan to do well, but not for the Jazz.
Yeah. He just needs to be elsewhere. I don't have anything against Jordan, the guy. I'm really happy that he plays for his Philippines national team, and he's probably the most popular athlete in all of Philippines. There are really good positive things about Jordan. He seems like a really good guy in the community. All of his teammates like him, and the fans like him. He's never had any issues off the court in Salt Lake. There are lots of good things to say about Jordan, but right now, Jordan should not be a guy getting a bunch of minutes with the Jazz because it serves no purpose. It doesn't help the franchise at all. The only thing it can help is Jordan. It doesn't help the franchise. That's the bottom line.
Well, it helps Hardy justify his decisions for the last year. It also does that and keeps giving these guys a chance to prove themselves. But I think the rest of us, well, not all of us, but in our opinion, it's not useful for us, for the franchise, for the future. So let's go back and look at Lauri Markkanen, because I got to tell you, Lauri's one of our favorite players. We're thrilled to have him on our team. We gave him this big contract. Look at his numbers this year.
Yeah, well, that field goal percentage is brutal, and that 3-point percentage is brutal. I mean, he's scoring 19.2 points per game. He's shooting 42.5 from the field, 34.5 from 3, 86 from the line, 6.1 rebounds in 32 minutes a game. That's not a good number. He's really struggling, and he struggled this entire year. I mean, that field goal percentage is tied for the lowest in his career. The 3-point percentage is almost tied for the lowest in his career. The lowest in his career was 34.4, and he's at 34.5 right now. And after tonight, these probably hasn't been tabulated yet, and he was 1 for 7 tonight from 3. I mean, he might be actually third after tonight. After they recalculate it with tonight's numbers, it might be 34.4. So he's basically a career lows. I don't know if his back is giving him this much issue, but his rebounds are way down too. I mean, last year he was at 8.2. The year before that he was 8.6, and right now he's at 6.1. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just not his numbers. This year, his numbers don't justify his contract, quite frankly. I mean, that's the bottom line. And it's not even close. John Collins' numbers are better. Way better.
Well, John Collins is a better player this year. John Collins has turned it around, and Lauri's gone the other direction. The thing I wonder, and look, we don't know. This is speculation. I'm guessing. I don't know. I have no idea if this is true or not. he got his big contract. A lot of players lose their motivation once they get their big contract. He went from 17, 18 million a year to more than double that. This year, 43 million. Next year, 48. The year after that, 48. At one point, it goes up to 53. I looked while the game was going on, so I know this. Do you think that affected him? Like, do you think that affects somebody? Do you think that it affects him that he doesn't want to be traded from Utah? He likes playing there. He likes living there. His family likes living there. Do you think that factors in? Because honestly, the better he plays, the more likely he is to be traded.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, he's still going to have a market this summer, but he doesn't have with a much bigger contract. Do you think he has as big a market? I don't.
No,
I don't.
If these numbers are how he ends this season, I don't think the Jazz can trade him because he's their number one asset. I think the Jazz were counting on him bringing back a haul. And right now, if I'm another GM, I'm not going to roll the dice on these numbers. You just can't. These numbers are not good. They just aren't. That's the bottom line. That's the reality of it. So no, I think this has hurt, and I don't think that Lowry's dogging it. I don't think he's that guy. I honestly don't. I think he would like to stay in Salt Lake, for sure, but I don't think he's gonna throw his numbers just to make him untradeable. I don't foresee him as being that guy. It's always possible, though. That's the reality of the situation. It's always possible. The guy's been traded several times already. Mm-hmm. I mean, would I rather live in Salt Lake than Chicago or Cleveland? Yeah, I would. I would rather live in Salt Lake. I've spent you and I have both spent time in Cleveland, and you and I have both lived in Chicago. Would you rather live in Salt Lake or over either one of those places? Yeah, I think probably both of us would choose and say yes.
Although if you throw in Giordano's in Chicago, it's
Giordano's is the exception to that. They definitely need a Giordano's in Salt Lake.
Yeah, that if you throw in Geno's and Giordano's, it kind of sways it one way. But no, I agree. I mean, it's tough, and I agree. I don't think Lauri's that guy, but you and I also. We haven't had the opportunity to go to to practices, see how hard the guy goes at it. I mean, I heard a Locke made this comment. He's like an Adonis, and he kind of looks like it. I mean, he's like ripped. So I don't think the guy, and that's hard to do. Let's face it. I don't care what your age is. That's hard to do to get yourself in that type of physical condition. So I don't think he's dogging it either. But it just, you have to kind of speculate, say, what's going on here? Because the numbers are down this year, down significantly this year. And they were down last year because he's playing with a terrible guard in Keontae George. I mean, Keontae, we should come up with a verb. He was Keontae'd because he got stuck with, Hardy. And then for some reason, Keontae goes and plays with him in Finland. Was it that market inviting him, or that's Hardy? Oh yeah, here's the guys at my team. Well, the problem is they're not the two guys. Maybe one is, but the other guy's not. But it's scary. And honestly, our biggest trade assets, other than our young guys, if we try to trade them this offseason, are Collin and Collins. Let's face it. I think that's probably going to be the case. Yeah. And we got to hang on to Lauri, which is fine. If we hang on to one guy and we get rid of the other two guys, we're going to lose next year too. But also, tonight was honestly, I was disappointed with our guys tonight.
Yeah.
Across the board. I was disappointed that Walker didn't come out and just dominate. Walker's been dominating. He wasn't dominating tonight. I honestly thought they were going to come out and try to kick the Lakers' butt. They got crushed. Yeah. They got their butts kicked all the way around. But it's just showing we're a long ways away. I keep getting optimistic. Man, maybe we're not that far away, right? No, we're a long ways away, right? So but let's just be honest about it. As much as I'd like to say we're one missing piece, we're more than one missing piece to get there. So we'll see.
there was no fight tonight. That's the bottom line, is there was just no fight. And yeah, it's hard to explain considering the magnitude of this game from a national and even world spectator perspective. Yeah, it's just that they didn't come out and just put everything into it and to put on a good show. It's like they just completely melted under the lights, and they just couldn't. Yeah, it's actually kind of distressing, that, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought, I come out and just do everything possible. I don't just really dig in, but they didn't do that at all. It was non-existent, other than Clarkson coming out and just dribbling around and jacking shots again. But, that may have, that certainly could have been a contributing factor into derailing the whole thing.
Yeah, honestly, so let's talk about the guys who did come out, even if they struggled for part of the game. Who do you think that came out and showed well for a national audience on the team? And just looking at numbers.
Well, looking at the box score in the final result, I would say, obviously, Walker's numbers actually ended up being pretty good, but again, the game was he didn't show up when the game was in the first half of the game. He just didn't show up. And Isaiah's numbers, like we said, he fought his way back, but and it wasn't his fault that he never had the ball in his hands to start the game. That's certainly not his fault. But again, I'd say those two guys were, and Johnny shot the ball fairly well too. Going 4 for 8 from the field and scoring 14 points. So, and Flip's limited minutes. I'd say he did okay, but still, again, he played 10 minutes and got 1 rebound, even though he scored 9 points in 10 minutes. So.
Well, if you only play 10 minutes, it's hard to say that you came out. I guess you could. So
it's too small. It's too small of a sample size. It just is.
Bryce, McCotter, Harkless. It's not fair to even judge him. Keontae, a dud is always. Johnny shot pretty well. I'm not sure he did anything else. He got 4 rebounds, so. Isaiah, I think he fought through his troubles. So I was very happy with Isaiah. And I think John Collins, got 11 rebounds. The turnovers were pretty ugly that he had, but I thought that he was decent. But the only guy I think that really showed toughness it was honestly Isaiah. Like Walker, he was invisible for a big part of the game.
Yeah. Yep.
He wasn't the guy that with the 18 rebounds a game, you can't get 18 rebounds a game, but if there was one game to do it in, it's this one.
Yeah.
We played our guys. It was this one. I was looking forward to this game all day. I was looking forward to this game because I thought they were going to come out there and show up. I thought they were going to lose, and I wanted them to lose. I thought they were going to show up. They didn't show up. So it was disappointing. And honestly, I'm really proud of Isaiah that he fought through it. I love some of the things he did, like pull the ball away from the guy and just kind of throw him to the side. I really like that about Isaiah, but it wasn't a game to be proud of.
Yeah, this is one of the worst games we've seen in a while. That's the bottom line. I'm certainly not going to go back and rewatch any of this game. Just pretend like it didn't exist. I am going to tune into some more Lakers game moving forward because I want to see what happens with the Lakers team now. I'm curious over the next. My interest will probably dissipate as things move along, but for the next week or two, I think I'll watch them play just because I'm curious. But from the Jazz perspective, I want the rotations and the minutes distribution to change. That's what I want, and I want more development. I want the Jazz to lose, but I want more development. Not development of Jordan Clarkson. No. And quite frankly, I'm not, at this point, I'm not that interested in the development of Keontae George. He needs to show me something more than he has. So that's honestly, that's the way I feel about it. I really like Filipowski. I really like Collier. I really like Walker. I like John Collins. I like Lowry. I like Sexton. I do not like Jordan Clarkson and Keontae George. I'm not a fan.
Yeah. If Sexton would have played, he would have showed up. He may
Oh
have shot
yeah,
terribly. He may have turned the
yeah,
ball over, but I got to tell you, he would have come out,
yeah.
as hard as he. So unfortunately, Colin wasn't there, because at least we would have had a guy that would have gone from the opening tip to the ending tip. He would have gone hard.
And also that would have taken Jordan out of the starting lineup too, if
Well,
Colin were
maybe.
there, which would have been a massive improvement. In honesty, if we could just got off to a better start than we did.
Yeah, well, I'm not convinced as you are that our friend Hardy is going to do that or not bench Colin for Clarkson, because he doesn't learn. The man doesn't learn. He's smarter than anybody else, even though he's not smarter than anybody. So it's a sad thing. So Keontae had 2 turnovers in a row. We've certainly seen Colin do that too. And we don't like it for either Colin or Keontae. The difference is he did a Keontae. He turned the ball over the second time and then just threw up his hands and stopped playing until his man was halfway up the court and then decided to sort of jog back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was disgusting. That's the play that you yank his butt out and you put him down and you say, the next game you're not going in. Hardy, show up and do your job and sit the guy down if he doesn't play hard. We're tired of seeing it. We're tired of seeing it as fans. We want people that are going to try hard and, follow your stupid motto. It's actually not a stupid motto. You got to follow it. Play hard and pass. Well, if you don't play hard, put them down and let somebody else play hard. I guess that's what you're doing with Sensabaugh, and maybe he doesn't play hard, right? But Keontae, you cannot let that continue to happen. Put him down.
Yeah.
Right? Play somebody else. This Harkless kid plays hard.
Oh yeah.
Say, Keontae, you play like him. You're more talented than him. You play like him. You can play. Otherwise, don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll teach him to, put him down like you do with Sensabaugh for 5 games in a row. I bet maybe he's motivated then. You would think. I don't know. He's been such a golden child his whole life that he may never learn. But you've got to make him learn, and you got to hold him accountable.
Yeah, yeah. At some point, I mean, some coaches got to. I mean, he just can't be just gifted minutes like this. It just doesn't. It doesn't work, because it rubs off negatively for the other players on the team too. And this is one of my complaints with Clarkson, the way he plays. You don't want those negative behaviors transferring over to some of the other guys. I mean, Jordan's obviously getting rewarded for the negative plays. The constantly searching his own shots and his own points indiscriminately, and you just can't. You can't do this. This is not the way. It's just not the way. And I don't care what line of work you're talking about. You just can't reward negative play and negative behavior like he is with both Jordan and Keontae. And that's what he's done. And that's what he's doing. Oh, anyway.
Yeah. Well, you can't do it and win and build a winning culture, but the reality is we're not trying to. I think we are trying to build a winning culture, but we're not trying to win right now. And so let's see. I honestly do think Danny Ainge is a smart guy. Boy, I hated him as a player. Just hated him. Just like I hated the Celtics. At the time, I was one of the few guys in Utah that liked the Lakers versus the Celtics. But something. He's a very smart GM. Yeah, he for some reason he's not traded Clarkson. He gave him a bad contract. I honestly think that's Ryan Smith. I don't think that's Danny. Yeah. So I do think Danny Ainge is smart enough to see if the team is the last in the league in defense and is letting players play that he's admitted. Ainge admitted after the close of last season that Keontae has some issues. If he continues to see that, he's going to know something has to change. And so we'll see. It's frustrating us. I'm sure it's frustrating a lot of other fans too, that we hope something has changed, and we do. But I would bet you I'll bet you a Golden Corral lunch. If there is still a Golden Corral. I don't even know if
I
there's a
don't
Golden
know. I don't know if one even exists anymore.
Yeah. Plus, you don't eat anything at Golden Corral, and neither do I.
Yeah.
So we'll pick somewhere else. But I don't think he's going to change this year. I don't, because we've seen 2 years of him not changing at all. So, but we'll see. We'll be optimistic.
Yeah. Well, anyway, do you have anything else to add for this evening?
Nope.
All right. Well, I think we will call it a night, and we are happy that the Jazz did lose the game, so that's really the big grand positivity out of tonight's game, and that's really the carrot, so to speak. So at least they lost. And with that, we will call it a night, and we hope everybody has a terrific rest of your evening. It's midnight here in Utah, so good night, everybody.